Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to all of you who are joining us here in our sanctuary and those who are joining us from home. Before we light our Shabbat candles, every once in a while we have to take a brief detour from our usual practices and celebrate somebody on a special occasion. So tomorrow, Shabbat, is Fred Schaefer's 92nd birthday. So when you get to 92, you get mentioned at Shabbat services too. We wish you a happy birthday, healthy and happy year ahead, and may you keep dancing with us as you always do. It's dancing during Shabbat that's kept him going for so many years. So we'll light our candles, page 2 in our prayer books. Please join with us. We hope those who are joining us from home that you'll light with us as well.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Part of tonight will be remembering 3 years ago this weekend, the tragic events in Pittsburgh at the Tree of Life Synagogue. And so often we look back and as I've said, I think I said it 3 times today, as we're counting time, we use the pandemic. We think something was 6 months ago, and then you remember it was before the pandemic. You say it must have been 2 years ago. Well, 3 years ago, we were shocked and saddened by the tragic terrorist attack and murder at the Tree of Life Synagogue. But out of that was a resurgence of being together and coming to synagogues, inviting others into our synagogues, our communities. When somebody reflected with me a while ago that, and we remember well, it showed us how deep our friendships are across the community following those days, that our synagogues were filled after the holidays, when they're usually not so filled, with all of our friends, all of the churches and mosques and people around our cities who have come to know the Jewish community. They came together, and we continued to come together. And so we begin tonight with the words, Hinei ma tov, how nice it is, how important it is that we are together, followed by the words of Lecha Dodi that invite us to welcome this Shabbat peacefully into our sacred spaces. Page 10, Hinei ma tov.
Hinei ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. 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 Shevet achim gam yachad. Shevet achim gam yachad.
Page 20.
לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכר ודיבור אחד השמיענו, אל המיוחד אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתחילה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונחכי מכל הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי כי באורך, קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Please rise as we welcome Shabbat.
בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובסוחלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Please join me in the Hati Kaddish on page 26. יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, ויעמד יברח חירותי, וימליך מלכותי, וחייכון וביומכון, ובחייך בית ישראל. בגלה, בגלה, ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ועולמיה. יתברך, יתברך, וישתבח, ויתפאר, ויתרומם, ויתנשא, ויתהדר, ויתעלה, ויתהלל, שמי לקדשה בריחו, לעילם ינקור ברכתה ושירתה. תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירה מעלמה, ויאמרו אמן.
Page 28, our call to worship, the Baruch Hu.
Lai la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks this evening into being, skillfully opening the gates, thoughtfully altering time, changing the seasons before us, arranging the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on this evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv, Aravim. Page 33, please join me at the bottom of the page. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us. The more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivud Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Please be seated and join me in chanting V'ahavta on page 36. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher nohi mitzavecha hayom elevavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'vlachtecha b'derech Uveshokbecha uvkumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot beinenecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha L'man tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem gedoshim Elohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, and that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Michamocha, page 40.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha neder b'kodesh. Nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. Malachutecha ra'uvanecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam zelianu ve'amaru Adonai yimloch Adonai yimloch la'olam va'ed. We continue on the next page with Hashkivenu, our prayer for peace. Hashkivenu Adonai shalom. V'ha'amidenu shomreinu l'chayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shalomecha. Ufros aleinu sukat shalomecha. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right, O Adonai. Amen. Amen, amen. Amen, amen, amen. O Adonai.
On page 44. So often we pair these two prayers together. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael, that we are to protect, hold on to Shabbat. Yismechu v'malchutcha shomrei Shabbat, that in our protecting of Shabbat we find this great joy. Part of what was so shocking 3 years ago was that on a day we expected to be peaceful and quiet, where we tend to allow time to slow down and not feel rushed, and the news can wait until tomorrow, that it couldn't. And after that, there seemed to be a different meaning to these words, that we should find protection on Shabbat, that we should make sure that we protect the idea of joy. And so as we reach back to those scary moments, so too we commit ourselves over and over again to make sure that what was tragic about that day doesn't continue to destroy this day for us. We enter into this day with prayers that we do find the peace and solace that we seek, that we not only feel safe, but promote safety, so that this can continue to be a safe place for us to come to offer our prayers and connect with our people and remember our loved ones. We offer those personal prayers, page 46, as we rise.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanara, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'Nehem L'Ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham V'Ezra Tzara, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechakel Chayim B'Chesed, Mechaye HaKol B'Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim B'Rofei Cholim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umida Melach, Melech Meimit U'Mechaye, U'Matzmiach Yeshua, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלע baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Please be seated. We say together at the top of page 55. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Shalom Rav, page 60. We pray that the world finds in all the ways in which it is broken a sense of wholeness and healing, a sense of peace.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata Melech Adon Lecha Shalom. Ki ata Shalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael. Bechol het uvachasha bishlomecha. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Please take a few moments for silent meditation. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, v'rachamim, sim shalom, tova uvracha, sim shalom, tova uvracha. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amecha sim shalom. Tova sim shalom, tova uvracha.
As we hold up words of peace this week with particular images in mind, so too we offer those same words to those who are suffering personally as they pray and wish for a fuller sense of themselves, a healthier sense of themselves, ailments healed. For all of those whom we know and care for, who we know need that strength, we offer that strength in the words of our Misha Berach, our prayer, that we connect with them and help them heal in whatever way we can. Page 253 will add their names into the midst of this prayer as we send them this strength.
Mi sheberach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
If there's a name you'd like to share, please share it as I look around the room.
Frannon Reed Wasserstrom. Mi sheberach imotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. In 2002, almost 20 years ago, journalist Jonathan Rosen wrote the following about how he saw his relationship to anti-Semitism in relation to his father's sense of anti-Semitism. He said, "When I was growing up, my father would go to bed with a transistor radio set to an all-news station. He was a Jew born in Vienna in 1924. He fled his homeland in 1938. His parents were killed in the Holocaust. And so I sometimes imagine my father was listening for some sort of repetition of past evils so that he could rectify old responses. Or perhaps he was just expecting more bad news. In any event, the grumbling static from the bedroom depressed me, and I vowed to replace it with music more cheerfully in tune with what I knew to be America. Rosen's account of the generational differences between his father's Jewish experience and his Jewish experience is familiar to many of us. For those of us who've lived our Jewish lives in America in the last century, we've lived a life under what one colleague referred to as American exceptionalism in a Jewish context. This exceptionalism told us that we didn't have to fear anti-Semitism in any significant way if we were in America. It wouldn't be a part of our daily lives. We could be fully American, assimilate with no boundaries, and face almost no sense of being an other. Just a few years after Rosen wrote that article, I visited St. Petersburg as a rabbinical student, traveling with others to Russia during Passover, a story I've shared before. For me, it was the first time that I was told not to make my Judaism known in public. If I wore a kippah, I should take it off or replace it with a ball cap. If people asked me why I was here, it might be wise to explain that I was a graduate student, not a rabbinical student. There was no real fear of violence, but life would simply be easier if my Judaism was just my Judaism and not someone else's business, we were told. Judaism during American exceptionalism was never that way. Yes, there were times when it was inconvenient, but those were predictable moments during winter holidays or public moments of prayer, at least in the last 50 years. Post-Holocaust Jewish generations largely did not listen to the radio with worry that the rug would be pulled out from under them the next morning. Every year at this time, I'm invited to speak to a couple college classes as they broach the topic of Judaism in their comparative religion course. It's a great honor, something I deeply enjoy. And so last week, I visited the same comparative religion class that I have visited for the past 5 years. Of course, the professor is the same, it's the students that change. It's taught by a Unitarian colleague who's also a friend. As was the case 5 years ago, I was asked about anti-Semitism. Following the class, once the students had clicked out of the Zoom, my friend, the professor, said to me, "It strikes me that your answer about anti-Semitism has changed since you started visiting my class. You used to say that it was not a significant problem. But today, you said it's one of the most pressing problems the Jewish community faces." As this Shabbat marks the third anniversary of the murder of 11 people at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, it also marks the day that the Jewish community stopped believing that America would be an exception to the places where we face anti-Semitism. The murders that Shabbat morning are by no means reflective of a change that took place overnight. We can point to any number of signs that gave us pause in the years prior, even in the decades prior, perhaps. But that Shabbat, in my opinion, was the moment that we stopped telling ourselves that we could somehow drown out anti-Semitism by playing cheerful music over its hateful chorus. Since that moment, the debate about having security at a synagogue is no longer a debate in America. Since that moment, the question as to whether white supremacy understands the nature of modern American Judaism, it's no longer a question in America. Like Rosen's father, since that moment, the Jewish world listens to the news a little differently. In a 2020 study on anti-Semitism in America, the AJC found that 88% of Jewish Americans feel that anti-Semitism is either somewhat or very much a problem in the United States, and that 82% feel it has increased in the last 5 years. But the same survey asked the general American public. 62% of the general public believe anti-Semitism is a problem. Less than half believe it has increased in the last 5 years. We listen to the news differently now, and we're hearing things that concern us. We do not live in World War II Europe. It's dangerous to make that parallel, so I want to be clear not to. But we do live in 21st century America, and right now, anti-Semitism is present. This Shabbat 3 years ago put that question to rest as well. And so while America can no longer be considered an exception to the Jewish experience in the rest of the world, to living a Jewish life free of anti-Semitism, it does not mean that we need to go into hiding, as was suggested when I visited Europe 15 years ago. I know this because I get the privilege of being reminded of it in a myriad of ways, but most recently because we hosted our first teen night this last Wednesday. Continues to be one of my favorite days of the year. Our teens are resilient and smart and thoughtful, fun-loving and proud Jewish people. And they are young enough to have never really known a world where they would take their Judaism for granted. They actually are young enough to not remember American exceptionalism. Some of them were barely 10 years old 3 years ago. They reflect what I often see as the best of Judaism today. They are diverse, racially, sexually, politically, geographically. As I've said before, we would do well to follow their lead. In whatever ways that America is not exceptional for us anymore, they are. So I want to share some of what I see in them, because they will likely be the ones on the front lines of anti-Semitism in our country, and more importantly, they give me hope. Our teens today are a true reflection of America, and yet they remain exceptionally Jewish. Previous generations of Jews were often defined by their country of origin. They were American, but it was hyphenated. They lived as Polish American, Russian American, German American. Perhaps my generation would say Jewish American or American Jews. We couldn't decide which went first. Our teens hyphenate a lot of things in their life. Many of them don't yet make sense to us, but not their sense of being American. They look and talk just like all the other kids that they go to school with. Our kids are not all from the same neighborhood as perhaps the Jewish kids were that you might have grown up with. They're not all from the same type of family. If they speak a language other than English, it's probably Spanish. Not Yiddish. This, perhaps for you, is nothing new. What is new is that they are the first generation of Jewish kids who are overwhelmingly part of interfaith families. This, too, distinctly American. They are a product of the blending of cultures, of a level of acceptance and cultural understanding that most of us did not experience as fully as they have. That used to be exceptional, too. Now, it's the norm. What makes them exceptional today, as they would tell you, is their shared Jewish experience. And so on Wednesday, 8th to 12th graders, many of whom would be intimidated by each other's presence if they saw each other in the hallways of their high schools, played hide-and-go-seek in the very synagogue where you are sitting right now, like they were 5-year-olds. They understand the value of a safe space, and they flourish in it. In our often too scary world, that should be noted as exceptional. They accept each other, play with each other, dare I say, love each other, because they are Jewish with each other. It is what makes them exceptional to each other, because when they're with their Jewish peers, they feel they can be most themselves. And when they are in their Jewish space, they feel they can be fully safe to be who they are, safe to seek each other out. And so we must do that too. Not take our Jewish community for granted and be distant from each other. Not take our safe spaces for granted because we've worked so hard to create them. We shouldn't hide from each other. We should seek each other out as our teens do. In the small numbers of teens that we have here in Akron, they come together very willingly. They put other things aside. They find shared time and shared space. Lesson 2. They know how to welcome others into their Jewish life. Ask our kids what they participate in, and you will, of course, hear that among our teens, there are kids in every club you could imagine, from robotics to Irish dancing. But you will also hear that at 2 local high schools this year, they have formed Jewish student clubs, and that a lot of students who are not Jewish join the clubs too. Many of our teens grew up as preschoolers in Jewish preschools that were attended not mostly by Jewish students, but by kids who were not Jewish. They learned from the earliest of ages to share their Judaism with their peers. They learned that their peers like being a part of their Jewish life. They're not afraid to talk about it. They're not afraid to promote their Judaism or share their Judaism, as many of us might have been when we were in their shoes. They are proud, they are promoters, they are joiners. They know that their Jewish life is not just something that differentiates them, it is something that makes them attractive. After all, half their parents found the Jewish half of their family very attractive. So why would we be surprised? I can't think of a better way to fight anti-Semitism beyond showing the world how beautiful Shabbat is, how wonderful challah tastes, especially if you're an overprogrammed 15-year-old who can eat your weight in carbs. What could be better than being with your Jewish friend and celebrating their holidays? Finally, lesson 3. They defy any caricature, any attempt to scapegoat us. Earlier this week, I went on my annual fall camping trip with my friend from Michigan. And we ventured east this time, a new direction for us, into Pennsylvania. On the way home, as we were driving on country roads near the Ohio-Pennsylvania border, there was a sign. It had a man wearing a hat pulling a horse-drawn buggy. It read, "Caution, Amish 500 feet ahead." Well, having not seen many Amish people in his life, my friend was very disappointed that 500 feet ahead, there wasn't an Amish man standing there for us to see as we drove by. Anti-Semitism, like all hate-filled forces, works really hard to capture us in the simplicity of one unified image that tries to explain everything we are with few words. In her book on anti-Semitism, Phyllis Goldstein calls this scapegoating that has turned anti-Semitism into a convenient hatred. You see, anti-Semitism, like racism, like sexism, it's lazy. It wants to make something that is complex and diverse into something that can be explained in a simple image or one sentence or one name. The world has a way of making it convenient to hate others this way, so long as those others are all simplified. It can spread easily. Our teens, they are fully immersed in society. Not only can you find them anywhere, in every neighborhood around us, in every club, with every interest, they are worldly. They speak a language that most of us are just starting to grasp. It understands how to accept concepts like gender fluidity and racial equity with ease. In this way, they know no boundaries. They certainly would not understand a sign that says, Amish people 500 feet ahead. They presume that a person of any type can be found anywhere at any time. They don't think that Jews live in one neighborhood or that the gay community only belongs in one place. They look around their schools and they know that they are diverse. They presume that a person of any type can be anywhere at any time. And that makes them ready for a world that wants to make their Judaism something simplistic, something that fits in a nice, neat box that threatens you. Of course it is not. Judaism is complex. It cannot be summed up in some image of a guy in a black hat, no more than any other people can. It can't be summed up in a derogatory term. It can't be summed up by trying to explain how Israel fits in the world or in your college campus. It's far more complex, and our teens are very comfortable with complexity. They've lived it their whole life. They presume that the world will be as complex as it always has been for them. No black and no white, simply tons of shades, colors of being Jewish, of being human, of being a part of our society. And so as we look back 3 years after a moment that in some ways has defined an aspect of our Jewish life, we know that today Jewish life exists alongside anti-Semitism. And I can't say, for I don't know, if it is yet getting better. What I can say is that the generation of Jews that we are raising are ready for the world that they are inheriting. They, of course, don't listen to the same radio that our grandfathers or great-grandfathers might have listened to. They listen to the XM radio, and they don't wait for bad news. They listen to their phones, and they're not looking for what will scare them. And they don't cover up what frightens them with cheerful denial either. They are diverse, they are smart, they are able to talk about truths that most of us don't even yet understand. They are living during challenging and dynamic times, and they continue to rise to such a challenge. As we get to watch them, they are exceptionally Jewish. Proud of who they are and using Jewish tools to stay connected, despite the challenges that have been put before them. We're lucky to have them. We'd be smart to follow them. May we realize that in all that scares us in this world, in the ways in which our country is perhaps not as exceptional as we once presumed it was, that here in our community, as is true across our country, there are those people, often younger than us, exceptionally willing to lead us and ready for the challenges that they face. Shabbat Shalom. I'll take a moment now to hear words written after that Shabbat 3 years ago by Nefesh Mountain, a wonderful Jewish musical group, as they wrote these words, Tree of Life. Words that for many of us recall one of the great Jewish values of how we look at the world, but of course took on new meaning as the Tree of Life Synagogue was the place of that terrible attack, and yet continues to be a sign of hope for us, not far from where we are.
Oh, sweet Spirit, hear my prayer. Help these words heal someone out there. I am but a voice, just a cry in the air, but I sing nonetheless in this pain we share. Oh, sweet friends, come and dry your eyes and hold each other by this tree of life. I'm angry and tired of this great divide, but I sing nonetheless with love on our side. Oh, sweet souls who feel broken now, we'll heal together somewhere, somehow. Time and again we have been let down, but we sing nonetheless, still whole and still proud. Oh, sweet Spirit, hear my prayer. Help these words heal someone out there.
Please rise, page 282.
Aleinu shabeach ladon hakol, latikir la liatzer reshit, shelo asanu kegoye arotut, velo samanu kamishmechot adama, shalo sam chelkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu kachamonam, vanachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, Lifnei Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'nimar, v'haya Adonai, lemelech al koret, bayom ha'hu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemu
Please be seated. We remember our people who suffered and died so that we could be free and secure. May their memory be more than a distant shadow. For their dreams left unfulfilled and lives taken too soon, we remember. We remember our brothers and sisters whose sacrifice kept the dream of democracy and justice alive. May their courage be our inspiration and strength. For life cut short and vision unrealized, we remember. Remember the fallen of our armed services, the victims of terror and tragedy. May the darkness of their loss not obscure the light of peace. They were in love with our land and in love with life. For the agony, the tears, the mothers and the fathers, for the children who were and for the children yet to be, we remember. This week, we recall those that we've lost in our community in the last month. Nat Givner, Marty Newman, Kenneth Wolf, David Stein, James Hockman, and Gilbert Weiner. So too, we recall those that we lost at this season in years past. Dr. Lawrence G. Bateman, Sharon Bauman, David Berg, Sheldon Butlin, Ray Cohen, Francis Palak George, Charles Goldman, Martin Greenblatt, Dina Katzenberg, Ben Kay, Bob Klein, Reuben Levine, Raymond Miller, Herman W. Moss, Lillian G. Myers, Sidney L. Olson, Seth William Rich, Dr. Samuel A. Rubin, Louis Schiller, Saul Sesnowitz, Louis K. Shapiro, Joseph Solomon, Miriam Stein, Robert Weinberg, Rose Weiner, Myrtle Williger, and Irving Zimmerman. If there are names I mispronounced or names you'd like to add, please share them. We rise, page 294, as we share in the words of Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, B'alma divrach yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, B'agala uv'izman kariv imru, Amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam olmei olmaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudashah b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechamata, Ta'amiran b'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all the world, as we say. Amen. We bless each other now with the words of the priests. May God bless you and keep you. May God's light shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May you feel God's presence within you always, and may you find peace.
Amen.
Please remain standing as we'll bless Kiddush and Motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, bari bari hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodesh u'b'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'masim bereishit, ki hu yam techila l'mikra'e kodesh, zecher tziyat mitzrayim, ki vanu v'cherta, v'yotanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodecha, v'ahava u'v'ratzon, hinchatanu, baruch atah Adonai, mekadish hashavat. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Please be seated. A couple quick announcements. We Sing is this Sunday, 10 a.m. in the Temple Library. Masks are required for everyone age 3 and up. That's our service for our little ones, toddlers, parents included. So you'll gather in the library, 10 a.m. Please spread the word. Grandchildren are welcome. You're welcome to bring them yourself if you'd like, but also to anybody you know who has a young kid. We try to connect people with each other, and we want those kids to know each other before they know how to speak. It's helpful. And so please, 10 a.m. this Sunday. We have on November 5th, I think that's the right Friday, correct? Yes. Wasn't officially in the list, but I'm going to say it anyway. The November 5th is the installation of Rabbi David Komarovsky in Canton. And so we sent an email out, Kylie sent an email out earlier this week. We want to remind you that what we will be doing on that Friday night is a online service at 6 o'clock, that it will be brief so that we can say Kaddish, especially for those that will be remembering that week. And then we will invite you to join the YouTube channel for our sister congregation, Temple Israel in Canton, where Rabbi Horowitz, who's here tonight, will offer his words over Rabbi David Komarovsky, who grew up in our congregation, who to many is known not as Rabbi Komarovsky, but as son of Phyllis. And so we'll watch someone who was a child in our congregation who now leads a congregation right next door that we're very proud of, and we get to join. One of the amazing things about technology is you don't even have to leave your own house, and you get to be in Canton and see him installed as a rabbi, something he's waited almost 2 years for now, given the pandemic. So please join us November 5th. And finally, on November 12th, it is new Member Shabbat. We have a number of new members that we want to welcome, whether they join us in person or virtually, and so we'll have a special service to welcome new members. We hope that you'll join us to greet those who are here in person. And we'll be joined that Friday night by musical guests Rob Ross and Jeremy Sosin to help beautify our service. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We'll close with the words of Adon Olam, as we'll invite you to sing with us as we continue to guard and celebrate our Shabbatot together, and as we continue to look to the next generation to be the wonderful leaders that they already are, from strength to strength. Please join us, page 321 in your prayer books if you'd like to find the words.
Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nira Li'ed Nasa V'chafso Kol Azai Malach Shemo Nikra Azai Malach Shemo Nikra V'yachari Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimlok Nora V'hu Haya V'hu Ove V'hu Yiyeh B'tifara V'hu Yiyeh B'tifara V'yado Avkid Ruchi V'yiti Shan V'ayira V'himeruchi Geviyati Adonai Li V'lo Ira Adonai Li V'lo Ira. Shabbat Shalom, and thank
Shabbat
you, Eli.
Shalom.
See you next week.